Welcome to Charette Theory, where we explore how the spaces we shape can, in return, shape the way we feel, move, and live day by day, season by season. Today, I invite you to step inside a room that quietly defies the gloom of winter, a Scandinavian kitchen designed not just to warm the body, but to calm the spirit and brighten even the longest, darkest days. For so many of us, winter is something we brace for, the season when the sun slips away too soon, when mornings feel heavy with darkness and afternoons disappear behind low clouds. We wait for spring, counting down the days until the thaw. But for people living in the far northern corners of the world, in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland, winter is not an unwelcome burden to escape. It's a way of life to be embraced, with gentle rituals that turn the coldest days into moments of quiet comfort. Here, in the soft glow of a Scandinavian kitchen, the darkest months become a canvas for light. A simple breakfast table under a pale morning sky feels like a small celebration when it's lit by a flickering candle. White walls don't feel sterile, they feel like open arms for every bit of daylight that finds its way inside. Natural wood brings warmth to cold fingers. Handmade mugs and simple linen towels remind us that beauty can be found in the humble, everyday things. In this space, you don't rush through winter, you lean into it. You linger over coffee that steams in the early hours while the world outside sleeps under a blanket of snow. You gather at the kitchen table for long, slow dinners that stretch into the night, with warm pools of light and quiet conversation. The kitchen isn't just for cooking, it's a refuge. A place where the small moments add up to a calm, bright winter life. So today, as you sit here with me, make yourself comfortable. Brew a fresh cup of tea or coffee, something warm to hold in your hands. Wrap up in your favorite blanket, and let's explore together how thoughtful design, simple, honest, rooted in nature, can transform an ordinary kitchen into a sanctuary. A place that holds back the cold and the dark, and instead invites us to savor winter as something gentle, glowing, and full of life. Whether your own winters are harsh or mild, long or fleeting, may this journey offer you ideas and inspiration to bring a little of that Scandinavian calm and brightness into your own home, one quiet morning, one warm cup, one candlelit meal at a time. At the heart of Scandinavian design is a quiet understanding of how to live well when the world outside feels cold, dark, and unforgiving. These northern landscapes teach their people early on that winter isn't something you can simply resist or chase away, it's something you live alongside. And over centuries, that understanding has shaped a way of building homes, gathering together, and designing the spaces where daily life unfolds. When we speak of Scandinavian interiors, we often hear words like hygge, that Danish word that has no true English equivalent, but which weaves together comfort, coziness, and contentment in one soft breath. Or lagom, the Swedish idea of balance, not too much, not too little, but just enough. These words aren't trends or marketing phrases, they're cultural touchstones that explain why Scandinavian kitchens feel the way they do: calm, clear, bright, and human. Walk into an old farmhouse kitchen on a snowy Swedish plain, or a modern city apartment in Oslo, and you'll find the same quiet sense of care. Walls painted white or pale grey to catch every scrap of daylight. Simple wood floors worn smooth by generations of footsteps. A sturdy table in the center, ready for work, meals, conversations, and slow mornings. There is a gentle democracy to the space, everything has a purpose, but nothing shouts for attention. This is a region where the kitchen isn't hidden away. It's the true heart of the home. In winter, when snow piles against the doorstep and the sun slips below the horizon before the afternoon is done, the kitchen glows like a lantern. Here, families gather in the early dark. Friends drop by for coffee and pastries. Children do homework on wide wooden tables while dinner bubbles on the stove. In the flicker of candlelight and the warmth of shared meals, winter becomes a season of togetherness instead of isolation. It's this everyday ritual, this willingness to embrace the slow, the quiet, the simple, that gives a Scandinavian kitchen its soul. The design is clean and minimal not because it's cold or rigid, but because it leaves space for life to unfold. Shelves hold the essentials: mugs, bowls, plates, not rows of things that gather dust. Open counters offer room to knead dough or chop root vegetables pulled from cold earth. Nothing is wasted, but nothing is missing either. And then there are the small comforts that make these spaces feel alive through winter's long nights: a handmade ceramic pot of tea that stays warm all evening, soft wool blankets draped over a bench by the table, a basket of firewood stacked by the door. This is a place that says, "Come in, stay a while, warm yourself." In a Scandinavian kitchen, winter does not feel like an enemy waiting outside the window, it feels like a reason to gather closer to the light within. So when you think about bringing this essence into your own kitchen, remember it's not about copying a certain look or buying all the right items. It's about asking, how can this room hold the small, good moments that make a cold season gentle? How can your kitchen become a place where winter feels calm, bright, and deeply human, not just for you, but for everyone who walks through the door and sits at your table? In the next part of our journey, we'll look more closely at how color brings this quiet magic to life, how the simplest shades can transform a kitchen into a lantern glowing softly against the dark. When daylight is precious, every surface matters. Every wall, every cabinet, every corner becomes an opportunity to catch and reflect the little light that winter allows. And so, At the heart of the Scandinavian kitchen, you'll find a palette as gentle as snow on a quiet morning, soft, pale, and quietly luminous. The walls are almost always white, but not a cold, sterile white. More often, it's a warm, chalky hue that feels like fresh cream or new-fallen snow just before sunrise. This isn't just a style choice, it's a survival instinct born of centuries spent living in places where the sun can vanish for weeks at a time. A white wall turns a single candle, a tiny lamp, a slant of morning sun into something bigger than itself, an echo of brightness that lingers long after the sky has darkened again. Yet pure white alone can feel thin and flat, especially in winter's hush. That's why Scandinavian kitchens are layered with soft neutrals that keep the space from feeling cold or stark. You'll often find subtle shades of warm grey on cabinet fronts, pale stone or ivory on backsplashes, gentle beiges, and oatmeals woven through textiles and rugs. Even hints of muted pastel, a whisper of blue like frozen lake water, or a soft sage green like moss under melting snow, might find their way onto a chair or a painted shelf. These colors aren't loud. They don't compete for your eye's attention. Instead, they create a sense of calm continuity, letting the light drift from surface to surface as naturally as breath. In the depths of January, when the sun rises late and sets before supper, this quiet play of pale tones makes the kitchen feel open, spacious, almost weightless. And then there is the wood, the warm heart that grounds all that softness. You'll see pale pine floorboards glowing underfoot, or blonde oak countertops worn smooth from years of chopping and kneading. Wooden cabinet handles, wooden open shelves, wooden beams that hold up the ceiling. Each piece of timber brings a small measure of warmth, a reminder that nature is never far away, even when the land beyond the window is buried under snow. This harmony of white, soft neutrals, and natural wood is the quiet genius of Scandinavian design. Together, they create a room that feels at once fresh and warm, as if the kitchen itself is gently holding on to the last of the daylight and giving it back to you in the soft glow of dawn or the pale shimmer of afternoon. And here's what makes this palette so inviting: it isn't precious or delicate. White walls can be wiped down. Wooden counters grow more beautiful with age and use. Linen towels and wool seat pads can be washed and worn and used again. The colors invite life, the spills of cooking, the marks of muddy boots in winter, the warmth of a family gathered close on a cold morning. If you're wondering how this might look in your own home, remember you don't need to repaint everything at once or gut your kitchen to feel this calm. Maybe it's as simple as painting a single wall a warm white, or sanding back a dark cabinet and giving it a coat of pale gray. Maybe it's swapping out heavy curtains for a soft linen panel that lets the winter light through. Maybe it's just placing a pale wool rug beneath your kitchen table to brighten the floor. The magic of this color palette is that it doesn't demand perfection. It just asks for softness, lightness, and a willingness to reflect whatever gentle light the season offers. And in that reflection, winter itself becomes something luminous, not something to endure, but something to cradle and carry with grace. Next, we'll look closer at how these colors work hand in hand with natural light, and how a Scandinavian kitchen is carefully designed to catch every fleeting beam, making the darkest season feel brighter than you ever thought possible. If the color palette is the canvas, then light is the living brushstroke that brings a Scandinavian kitchen to life. In the northern latitudes, daylight can feel like a rare treasure, thin and fleeting in the depth of winter, but so precious that it's cherished, protected, and carefully guided into every corner of the home. This is why, when you stand in a true Scandinavian kitchen, you'll notice something subtle but powerful: nothing stands in the way of the light. Heavy curtains are rare. Instead, windows are left bare or dressed in sheer linen panels that sway gently but never smother the daylight. Blinds, if they're used at all, are pale and light filtering, softening harsh midday glare but never blocking the world outside. And it's not just the obvious windows that do the work. Scandinavian kitchens are quietly ingenious about multiplying what nature offers. A simple mirror might be leaned on a shelf opposite a window, catching a sunbeam and tossing it deeper into the room. A polished metal teapot or a row of glass jars along an open shelf reflect tiny pinpoints of brightness, like little lanterns catching the day's glow. Older homes might have small, low windows, carefully placed so that when the winter sun arcs close to the horizon, its light still spills right onto the table where a family gathers. Modern renovations often go the other way, pushing for wide panes of glass, floor-to-ceiling windows, even clever skylights that open the ceiling to the pale northern sky. Whatever the era or style, the purpose is the same: to honor the daylight, however brief, and stretch it as far as possible into the darkest corners of the home. Look closer, too, and you'll see how this respect for natural light shapes the entire layout. Open shelving keeps upper walls clear, so light can move freely without getting swallowed by rows of bulky cabinets. White or pale backsplash bounce brightness onto countertops where winter meals are prepared by hand. Pale wood floors reflect warmth underfoot instead of drinking it up. This gentle generosity with light doesn't just brighten the room, it changes how people live in it. On a deep winter morning, you might find yourself drawn to stand in a sunlit patch on the floor, cup of coffee in hand, letting that narrow band of pale warmth soak into your skin. In the late afternoon, when dusk creeps in far too early, the kitchen might be the last place where a sliver of daylight lingers, a quiet corner where you can chop vegetables for supper without flipping on a single lamp, feeling for a moment that you and the sun are keeping each other company. This is the secret that Scandinavian kitchens hold so well, that light is not just practical, it's emotional. It lifts the spirit, clears the mind, and makes the ordinary tasks of daily life feel gentle, even sacred. And when the daylight finally does slip away, this same respect for light carries over into how the night is lit. With soft, layered lamps and the golden flicker of candles that pick up where the sun left off. You don't need to live near the Arctic Circle to feel this magic in your own home. Sometimes it's as simple as pulling back heavy drapes you never open, replacing them with something sheer and weightless. Maybe it's hanging a mirror where it can catch a stray sunbeam, or choosing pale shelves instead of bulky upper cabinets that block a window's reach. Maybe it's clearing clutter from the sill so the light has room to dance. In a world where so much is out of our control, the weather, the seasons, the turning of the earth, a Scandinavian kitchen reminds us that we can always choose to open our homes to the light. And in that quiet choice, winter stops feeling like a cage and starts feeling like a lantern, softly glowing, gently illuminating the life within. Next, we'll see how all this light finds an anchor. How natural materials and organic textures keep a bright kitchen from feeling cold and empty, wrapping it instead in a warmth that only deepens when the snow drifts high outside the window. Light alone, no matter how carefully gathered and reflected, can sometimes feel too thin if it's not held by something tangible, something warm to the touch, something real beneath your feet and under your hands. This is where the soul of a Scandinavian kitchen truly reveals itself, in its natural materials, its quiet textures, its honest surfaces that invite touch and carry the memory of many winters past. Step inside one of these kitchens and you'll feel it before you see it, the subtle warmth that rises not from technology or gadgets, but from the wood that lines the floors, the countertops, the shelves that cradle everyday things. Pale pine boards may stretch underfoot, their knots and grain telling the slow story of forests that once sheltered deer and fox in the same snow you now watch through your window. Oak beams, aged to a soft golden honey, might hold up a ceiling that's sheltered generations of family meals. At the heart of the workspace, you might find a thick wooden countertop or a solid butcher's block, worn smooth by knives and rolling pins and floury hands kneading bread dough on quiet mornings. These surfaces grow more beautiful with use, each mark, each scratch, a small testament to daily life unfolding gently, season after season. But wood is only the beginning. Stone finds its place here too, cool, grounded, steady. A simple soapstone countertop, a pale marble windowsill, or a rough granite mortar and pestle on an open shelf remind you that the natural world is never really shut out by the walls. Even the metals are chosen for their honesty: brushed steel taps, cast iron stove grates, unpolished brass handles that soften with age and touch. Look closer at the details and you'll see how the warmth deepens: handmade ceramic bowls that don't match perfectly, each one shaped by a human hand. A linen tea towel draped across the sink, a stack of woven baskets for bread or kindling. Maybe a simple wool rug under the kitchen table, soft under bare feet on cold mornings, a buffer between you and the chill of winter's breath seeping under the door. These materials don't fight winter, they meet it gently. When the wind howls and the world outside goes still and white, these textures remind you that warmth isn't just a matter of temperature, it's the feeling of your palm on a warm mug, your bare feet on an old pine floor, your eyes resting on a shelf where nothing is glossy or synthetic, but everything feels alive and true. In a world that often pushes us towards surfaces that never change, gleaming plastics, high-gloss finishes, flawless laminates, the Scandinavian kitchen stands quietly apart. It accepts imperfection. It trusts that wear and time will only add character. It reminds us that when we choose materials that come from the earth, we bring a bit of the forest and the mountain and the meadow into our daily life, even when that life is spent mostly indoors waiting for spring's return. And here's the quiet magic: none of this needs to be expensive or showy. A small wooden cutting board left out on the counter, a thrift stone bowl filled with winter apples, a linen runner on the table. Even the simplest touch can transform a kitchen that once felt hard and cold into something warm and forgiving. This is why, when you step into a Scandinavian kitchen in winter, you don't just see the light, you feel the warmth. Not just from the stove or the radiator, but from the textures and surfaces that cradle daily life in their honest embrace. In our next chapter, we'll explore what happens when that precious natural light fades and the sun dips below the horizon far too early, and how Scandinavians use the gentle art of warm, LED lighting to turn a winter night into something soft, welcoming, and endlessly calm. When the pale winter sun finally slips behind the trees or mountains, sometimes as early as mid-afternoon, the Scandinavian kitchen doesn't surrender to the dark. Instead, it comes alive in a new way, glowing softly from within, turning what could feel bleak into something comforting, even celebratory. The secret lies in the art of warm, LED lighting, a quiet craft that Scandinavians have refined over generations of long winters. Here, overhead lights aren't harsh or sterile. You won't find a single cold fluorescent bulb flooding the entire room in a flat, unforgiving glare. Instead, light is broken up into small pools, warm, golden pockets that gather people close, highlight daily rituals, and invite the eyes and spirit to rest. Look up, and you'll likely find pendant lamps floating over a kitchen island or a sturdy table, casting a circle of mellow light perfect for chopping vegetables or sharing a quiet evening meal. These fixtures are simple but thoughtful. Maybe brushed brass or enamel in soft, muted colors that echo the gentle tones of the walls and cabinets. Move your gaze lower and you'll find under-cabinet lights, soft strips that gently illuminate a countertop backsplash. They cast a warm wash of light that chases away shadows, making prep work easier and lending a quiet glow that lingers long after the work is done. There may be a small table lamp on an open shelf, its shade tipped just so to light up a favorite cookbook or a bowl of fruit left out for snacking. And then there are candles, always candles. Flickering flames at breakfast and supper alike, nestled in simple holders on the table or lined up on a windowsill so they glow against the night outside. A single candle can turn an ordinary winter meal into something special. A cluster of tea lights in mismatched jars can transform the corner of a countertop into a small altar to warmth and stillness. What's beautiful about this approach is how democratic it is. No one light is too bright or demanding. Each source does its quiet job, adding softness and depth so the whole kitchen feels layered and alive, never flat, never cold. The warm light bounces off pale walls and natural wood, deepening the sense that the room itself is a lantern against the dark. This layered warmth isn't just about beauty, it shapes how people live in the space. The glow of a single pendant lamp over the table draws family and friends closer together, creating an island of calm where conversation can linger long after plates are cleared. Soft lighting over a counter invites a solitary cup of tea at the end of the night, a moment to pause while the rest of the house drifts toward sleep. If you want to bring this gentle art into your own kitchen, you don't need a big renovation or fancy fixtures. Start small. Replace harsh bulbs with warm ones, soft white or warm amber tones that flatter the natural colors of your space. Add a lamp to a shelf or a corner that feels too dark and cold. Install a strip of under-cabinet LEDs that can stay on while the rest of the house settles into darkness. And never underestimate the simple magic of candlelight, tiny flames that hold a whisper of the sun you're missing outside. In a world that often values efficiency and bright, uniform light, the Scandinavian kitchen reminds us that shadows can be beautiful too. That nightfall can be softened, not fought. That when the world outside turns dark and still, we can gather our own small glow and share it with those we love, a quiet, flickering promise that the light will return. Next, we'll see how all this warmth and brightness balances with another signature of Scandinavian design, a sense of minimalism that never feels cold, a gentle restraint that leaves room for life to unfold without clutter or chaos. All this soft light, pale color, and natural texture come together in a space that feels calm and open, yet never empty or cold. This is the quiet genius of Scandinavian design, minimalism that doesn't strip a room of warmth, but instead clears away noise so that what matters most can breathe and shine. Walk into a Scandinavian kitchen and you won't find rows of high-gloss cabinets packed to the brim with things you rarely touch. You won't see clutter piled on every counter or every wall crammed with objects that steal the eye's rest. Instead, you'll notice a gentle sense of restraint, a careful editing that leaves behind only what's useful, beautiful, or loved. A stretch of counter might hold only a wooden cutting board and a ceramic bowl of winter fruit, nothing more, nothing less. Open shelves might display stacks of plain white plates and handmade mugs, arranged not for show, but because they are used every single day. The same shelf might hold a small trailing plant or a jar of dried herbs clipped from the garden last autumn, a reminder that even in deep winter, life persists in small green gestures. Storage is thoughtful, deep drawers that close softly, sturdy cupboards that hide the bulk of what you don't need to see all the time. The tools that do stay out are honest and beautiful in their own right: a cast iron pot on the stove, a weathered wooden spoon in a crock near the sink, a well-used kettle waiting to warm your next cup of tea. Everything feels chosen with care, not excess. Yet this simplicity never feels austere. The edges are softened by things that speak to comfort and life: a folded wool blanket draped over the bench by the kitchen table, a sheepskin thrown over the back of a chair where you sip your morning coffee. A small basket under a counter holds firewood or extra linens, easy to grab when the air grows cold. A simple linen curtain may hide the under-sink storage, its soft fold adding a quiet layer of texture. This is minimalism that feels forgiving, lived in, human, full of small imperfections that make the space feel loved rather than staged. It's the opposite of sterile. It invites you to exhale, to rest your eyes, to clear your mind along with your counters. And perhaps that is the real gift of a Scandinavian winter kitchen. It reminds us that less can truly be more, not in a harsh, rigid way, but in a gentle, generous way. Less clutter means more room for gathering, more space for a child's homework to spread out across the table, more space for a neighbor to set down a plate of pastries when they drop by unannounced on a snowy afternoon. It's not about denying yourself things. It's about clearing away what's unnecessary so you can savor what remains: the smell of fresh coffee, the warmth of a loaf of bread just pulled from the oven, the sound of quiet conversation while the snow falls outside. If you wish to bring this softness into your own kitchen, start small. Tuck away what you don't use every day. Leave only the essentials, the pieces you truly love and reach for often. Find a way to store the rest out of sight. Fold a blanket over a chair, place a small rug under your feet, add one small living thing, a pot of herbs, a single branch in a glass jar, and see how the room starts to breathe again. In the end, minimalism made cozy isn't about the absence of things, it's about the presence of space, light, warmth, and a quiet sense that in the middle of winter's hush, you have exactly what you need, and not a bit more to weigh you down. Next, we'll step further into the heart of these kitchens, into the way they're designed to be more than places to cook. They are places to gather, linger, share, and hold the gentle warmth of community against the long winter night. If there's one thing that truly sets a Scandinavian kitchen apart, it's the way the room invites people in, not just as a place to cook or clean, but as a living, breathing heart of the home. Here, the kitchen is never shut away behind a door or hidden at the back of the house. Instead, it's open, welcoming, and woven naturally into daily life. In these northern homes, winter's long nights and short days create a deep human need for connection. And so, the kitchen becomes more than a functional workspace, it becomes a gathering space, a place where warmth is shared as much in conversation as it is in the food made by hand. Picture an old farmhouse kitchen in the countryside of Sweden or Norway. At its center sits a long, sturdy wooden table, wide enough for kneading bread in the morning and still generous enough to hold dinner for a family and neighbors in the evening. Mismatched chairs, each with its own quiet history. Surround the table, sometimes softened with cushions or draped with sheepskins to keep the chill away. A bench may run along one side, inviting more people to squeeze in, to lean close, to linger long after the meal is done. In modern apartments, the spirit is the same. An island might take the place of a long farm table, but its role doesn't change. It's a work surface, a casual dining spot, a place to drink coffee while the snow drifts outside the window. Children might spread out their homework there, parents might read the newspaper, friends might gather on a dark winter evening to share a glass of wine, telling stories while supper simmers gently on the stove. The kitchen is designed for ease of movement and connection, no awkward corners to trap conversation, no heavy partitions to shut people off. Open shelves mean you can reach for a cup without asking where it's kept. A window near the sink lets you talk to a neighbor standing outside or keep an eye on kids building snowmen in the yard. The layout flows naturally into the dining room or living space, so the boundary between cooking and gathering almost disappears. It's these small, human gestures that make the space feel alive, even when the world beyond the walls is frozen and still. A basket of fresh bread sits within easy reach. A pot of stew bubbles on the back burner while laughter fills the warm air. Someone lights another candle, and the flickering flame reflects in a window black with night. Function never comes at the cost of feeling. Every cabinet, drawer, and worktop is designed to make daily tasks smooth and simple, but never at the expense of warmth or beauty. You'll find deep drawers for flour, potatoes, and root vegetables that can last through months of frost. Hooks for hanging aprons and tea towels keep things handy but also add a layer of softness to the room's edges. And when the meal is done, the table stays warm with conversation. In Scandinavian culture, there's an old custom called kaffe, the ritual of coffee and something sweet. Often shared not because there's a special occasion, but because there's time and space to sit together. It's not unusual for this simple pause to stretch for hours on a winter afternoon, a reminder that when the world outside slows down, the warmth inside has room to grow deeper. This is why the Scandinavian kitchen is more than just for walls and a stove, it's a gentle answer to the cold and dark outside. A living promise that we are never alone in the depths of winter if we have a warm place to gather and share life's simplest pleasures. If you dream of bringing this spirit into your own home, remember, you don't need a farmhouse or open-concept apartment to create it. All it takes is a table big enough for 2 or 3 to sit close, a pot of coffee ready to pour, a sense that the kitchen is not just for tasks, it's for togetherness. Next, we'll explore the subtle ways Scandinavians weave the season itself into their kitchens. Small touches that remind everyone that winter, too, can be beautiful when invited gently inside. One of the most beautiful lessons a Scandinavian kitchen offers is this: rather than shutting winter out, it gently brings the season inside, on its own terms, softened and woven into daily rituals that remind us to see beauty in what many see only as cold and dark. While the walls stay pale and the light stays warm, small seasonal touches shift quietly as the snow deepens and the days grow short. There's a mindful celebration of winter's textures and gifts, simple, honest details that ground the kitchen in its time and place. You might find sprigs of evergreen tucked into a glass jar on an open shelf, their scent whispering of deep forests blanketed in snow. A wreath of pine, eucalyptus, or dried herbs might hang on a cabinet door, not just at Christmas, but through the whole season, a living nod to the green world sleeping under frost outside. On window sills, candles stand watch against the darkness. In many Nordic homes, rows of tea lights glow each evening. Not in grand displays, but in simple lines that cast gentle reflections on the glass, turning a window into a lantern that glows softly both inside and out. Some families place paper star lamps in the windows, a tradition that reminds neighbors and passers-by that warmth lives within, even when the wind howls down empty streets. Nature comes in, too, in humble ways, a bundle of bare branches gathered from the yard or a nearby forest, standing tall in a simple vase. Cones and dried berries in a wooden bowl on the table. A stack of firewood near the door, not only practical but beautiful in its rough texture and subtle scent of resin and forest floor. Textiles shift for the season as well. In the colder months, thicker wool blankets and sheepskins appear on benches and chairs, adding layers of warmth and softness. Linen napkins and tea towels in earthy tones, deep charcoal, soft grey, warm taupe, replace lighter summer colors. A knitted potholder hanging from a hook by the stove feels like a small gesture of care every time it's lifted to cradle a steaming pot. These touches are never fussy or overdone. They don't shout for attention, they simply settle in, as quiet companions to the rhythm of winter life. They remind everyone who steps inside that the cold outside is part of the story, not an enemy to keep at bay at all costs. In some homes, you'll see this seasonal mindfulness in the pantry, too. Jars of preserves made from last summer's berries stand ready to brighten a slice of buttered bread on a dark morning. Root vegetables, carrots, parsnips, potatoes, rest in baskets or bins, waiting to be turned into hearty stews that warm the whole kitchen with their rich aroma. Even a simple pot of herbs on the windowsill, rosemary, thyme, or chives, brings a small burst of green to remind the cook that life sleeps now, but does not end. All of this speaks to an ancient wisdom, that to thrive in winter, one must befriend it. To see its gifts instead of only its trials. To let it shape the kitchen's character for a few short months, adding layers of warmth and reminders of nature's quiet rest, so that when spring finally returns, the home feels ready to open its windows wide once more. In your own kitchen, you can invite winter in with just a few gestures. Clip a handful of evergreen branches on your next walk and slip them into a jar. Light a candle at breakfast, not just at dinner. Drape a wool blanket over the back of a chair. Keep a bowl of seasonal fruit on the table, citrus, apples, pears, a small promise that even in the depths of frost, life's sweetness remains. In these small, thoughtful ways, a Scandinavian kitchen teaches us that winter does not have to be endured in spite. It can be welcomed with gentle hands, simple beauty, and a sense of peace that lingers long after the snow begins to melt. Next, we'll bring all these threads together, light, color, natural materials, gentle minimalism, and seasonal details, and see how they create a kitchen that doesn't just stand against winter, but transforms it into something calm, warm, and deeply nourishing for the spirit. As we come to the end of our time together, step back with me for a moment and take in the whole picture, this quiet, thoughtful space that holds so much more than walls, cupboards, and a table. A Scandinavian winter kitchen is not a style you simply copy, it's a feeling you grow, layer by layer, gesture by gesture, until it wraps around you like a blanket on a cold morning. Here, light is never taken for granted. Pale walls and soft, reflective surfaces invite the sun to linger a little longer when the days are short. Simple mirrors, glass jars, polished tiles, all help to catch and scatter every stray beam, turning the briefest daylight into something generous that brightens every corner. Color is gentle, forgiving, never harsh. Warm whites, soft grays, the blonde warmth of raw wood, they blend into a calm backdrop that asks nothing more of you than to pause, breathe, and rest your eyes. It's a palette that feels like the hush of snowfall, the quiet promise that even the coldest season can glow from within. Natural materials do the rest. Worn wood floors, stone counters, handmade ceramics, linen draped here and there. These textures hold warmth not only in the physical sense, but in the way they connect you to the natural world even as snow piles up outside the door. They remind you that winter is not a punishment, it's part of a cycle that returns again and again, asking us to slow down, gather close, and find beauty in stillness. The way light layers in when the sun is gone, soft pools from pendant lamps, warm washes under shelves, the timeless flicker of candles, makes the room feel alive at night, like a quiet hearth that keeps the dark from pressing too close. This is a place where conversation lingers long after dishes are cleared, where silence can settle without feeling empty. Minimalism here doesn't strip life away, it clears space for life to unfold. Open counters ready for rolling dough, wide tables ready for conversation, drawers and shelves that hold what's needed but not more than that. There is room to breathe, to move slowly, to gather the people you love and make the cold outside feel far away. Seasonal touches remind you to greet winter as a guest rather than a burden. A branch clipped from the yard, a wreath on a cupboard door, a bowl of bright oranges or winter apples on the table. These small gestures shift the mood of the kitchen with the turning of the earth, asking nothing more than for you to notice, to cherish, to be present. And at the center of it all is a simple truth: a kitchen like this doesn't demand perfection. It welcomes the mess of real life, muddy boots at the door, flour dusted across a countertop, a kettle always just about to boil again. It's not about polished, pristine surfaces untouched by hands. It's about a room that's alive with daily rituals, quiet mornings over coffee, neighbors dropping in for a warm cup on a snowy afternoon, a candle flickering beside a plate of bread and cheese when the sun slips away too soon. If you take anything from this journey, let it be this. You don't need to live in Sweden or Norway to make winter feel calm and bright. You don't need a designer kitchen or endless time and money. All you need is a willingness to choose light when you can, to keep things simple and honest, to bring in textures that comfort you, and to remember that winter can be more than a season to endure. It can be a quiet friend that invites you to gather, rest, and find warmth within. So as you sip your tea or coffee and look around your own kitchen tonight, ask yourself, what small thing could I change to make this space glow a little softer? To make the dark nights feel a little warmer? Maybe it's a candle, maybe it's a blanket, maybe it's just clearing away the clutter to let the light come in. Thank you for spending this time with me, here at Charette Theory. I hope you leave with ideas, but more than that, with a sense that winter doesn't have to dim your days. Your kitchen, however simple, can hold you gently through the season, calm and bright, like a lantern flickering quietly against the longest night. Until next time, stay warm, stay well, and remember that the smallest moments, the simplest gestures, are often the ones that make us feel most at home. And so, as we step away from this quiet Scandinavian kitchen, perhaps you can still hear its hush echoing softly in your own home, the gentle clink of mugs, the faint rustle of linen, the promise of warmth that lives in small, ordinary rituals. A kitchen like this reminds us that design isn't about trends or perfect surfaces, it's about creating a space that carries us through the seasons with care. In winter, when the days are short and the nights arrive too soon, it's these simple choices, a candle at breakfast, a pot of tea left warm on the stove, the hush of pale walls catching the last of the light, that make all the difference. So tonight, as you close this video and return to your own kitchen, notice what's already there. Maybe there's a forgotten corner that could hold a small lamp, or a windowsill waiting for a branch of pine. Maybe there's a table that wants to hold not just meals, but laughter, conversation, and quiet moments that linger long after the snow has melted away. Thank you for inviting me into your day, for letting Charette Theory share this calm, bright corner of the world with you. If you found comfort or inspiration here, I hope you'll return again, bringing with you a fresh cup of coffee, a candle to light, and a heart open to the gentle promise that winter, too, can feel like home. Until next time, be well, stay warm, and keep your light glowing softly against the dark.